My name is Sue Maberry, and in 1976, I was a student at Pitzer College taking art and women's studies. And I read about the Woman's Building in the New Woman's Survival Catalog, which was a very popular book at the time. It was a bestseller. And there was something in there that said that the Woman's Building was this place in Los Angeles for women artists. And I just thought it sounded so interesting, but I couldn't really get involved yet. The next year, I went to the Woman's Building. I met some people, and it was just so great that I had to go there. So I immediately enrolled in the Feminist Studio Workshop. I started working at the building, and I stayed there for 11 years. I met Sheila de Bretteville there, and Sheila's brilliant, and I just learned so much taking her design workshops. I had never really taken a design class and was very, very interested in what she was teaching about communication and how graphics could reach out and women could be uncensored, telling their own story if they could create the posters or the books or whatever to make their experience visible. And this was, of course, being that I was angry all the time, actually noticing how much women had been erased from culture, that the universal was male experience, it wasn't female experience. So this was like a revelation to me and really, really exciting. I also worked with Suzanne Lacey a bit and was in her performances. I met Sherry Galkey and Feminist Art Workers, and later formed Sisters of Survival, which was a performance art group modeled on the kind of Suzanne Lacey methodology of creating art that would be for the public, using performance art specifically that could reach out to lots of different audiences and to a general public and make a message heard that way. I met my life partner there. Sherry was the very first person I met at the Woman's Building. She was in charge of recruitment or meeting new people who were coming to the Feminist Studio Workshop. I just thought she was very cool. And she went off to Europe for a few months shortly thereafter, so I didn't see her. And when she came back, she started working at the Woman's Building. And by that time, I was the director of the extension program. And so I think I even hired her to assist with that. And we became best friends. And then a couple of years later, we got together, and we've been together ever since. I didn't have the drive to be an artist in my own right. I really got a lot out of working and being there in the community and having a job to do that would expose me to all this great activity. But I didn't really have the drive or ambition to be an artist in my own right. So I had a great time working and supporting other artists. So that's why I worked with Suzanne Lacey and her projects. I was one of the women in Morning and Rage piece. I worked with Leslie Labowitz later, who came to work as our PR director at the building. We actually came up with the idea of putting the Kate Millett sculpture on the roof of the Woman's Building. Made the front page of the LA Times when we did that. It was really great. Sheila applied for a grant to fund the feminist education, feminist design program, and I worked as the administrator on that grant for several years, and just helped in general with many, many kinds of art projects and organized events, wrote grants, helped curate shows, just got exposed to all sorts of things that just really opened my world. Actually, working at the building completely changed my life. I came from a suburban, area out by Claremont with, suburban life. And coming to LA and finding this hotbed of feminist activity was just fabulous. And I'm so happy that I was able to find that and be involved. During the 80s, funding got really tight for arts organizations in general. And I realized that making a career as an administrator in arts organizations wasn't going to be maybe possible in the long run. So I looked around for something else that I might like to do, and I thought librarianship would be a good thing for me. So I went back to school, left the Women's Building, went back to school, got a MLS in library science, and shortly thereafter came to work at Otis. Around that, or just previous to that, the Women's Building, I could tell, was not doing well and was ready. It was going to be ending soon. And because I was in a library, and I thought, I really don't want the slides to be lost and to just go somewhere where nobody would know what they were. So I said, let me take them at Otis. So we got the slides and became part of the archive. A few years later, the Getty was doing this project about helping arts organizations or organizations, libraries, create content for the web. The web was still new. This was around 1994 or so. And so I didn't really know, but I thought, okay, I'll get involved. And they came to us and they said, what do you have that you would like to make available? I said, well, we have these Women's Building slides, and they were extremely interested. They helped us digitize the slides and make an archive online. So that was the first exposure. I learned about, creating web content, digitization, making image databases, things like that. Because we had this collection, and I had this experience when the Getty started it was a preliminary stage of Pacific Standard Time where they were looking at archives and what kind of content was in archives. And they sent out some funding, RFPs, requests for funding, to explore some of the content that was in various institutions that maybe was buried, that was about, kind of LA and the art scene in LA. And we said, well, what about the Women's Building? And I said, well, okay, maybe we could do that. Not really sure that we would get this or anything, but I worked on the grant, we applied, we got it. And so then I had to do it, of course, and that was the next phase. We got some scholars involved, and they did research about the building, and Meg Linton and I started visiting archives where the Women's Building items had been sent, the Archives of American Art in Washington, D.C., and so forth. And gradually we realized that this would make a good exhibition, and so we applied for the second phase of the exhibition funds. So in total, we've been working on this project for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. It's been a long, long time. It was my idea to actually start creating some of these video herstories, because a lot of the women who are involved, it's very hard to find information written about them, and it's much more interesting, I think, for them to be able to tell their own stories. So that's why we thought, as part of our exhibition, we would have this component of video stories. The scholars and other people who come after who want to research could have these as a resource, but we would make them available through YouTube and online so that people could get a sense of the type of people, the really extraordinary artists and writers and designers that were involved with the building over time, and how they each contributed in their own way. So that's what the video herstories have become, and I'm very pleased. We probably have about 40 of them by the time we finish. I met all of my really close friends at the Women's Building. It really changed my life, because people I met there, because I worked with them, and it was just such an incredible community and an intense environment, that those friendships and people that I met there have remained friends and connections throughout my entire life. So no matter where we are, we meet up with each other, we're in different cities or situations, and it's always this kind of bond that I have never replicated since. I never have given myself so much to an institution or a place or anything that I've worked in as much as I gave myself to that. Not that I want to recreate it and do it again, but it's like it was so intense and so wonderful for that time and that period, that it doesn't go away. It remains with me as this very, very connected space, even though it doesn't exist anymore.